world without evildoers. When we name demons among our adversaries, we risk falling into a mode of retribution and hate. But we do have adversaries on important issues. Many are operating within the confines of what they consider to be the best choices available. But they sometimes engage in actions that may not be up to the aspirations that we promote. In education generally, and Saybrook is no exception, we see an increasing move toward centralization, standardization, and the treatment of people as replaceable. The merger into a consortium of 4 different schools may have been needed for financial survival, but may have inflicted damage to its soul. For different reasons, a number of most beloved and accomplished faculty have left, and the reliance upon a bond of trust among students, faculty, and staff has been partly replaced by an increasingly burdensome checklist. Faculty have questioned the process in which Saybrook's beloved and iconic faculty member Stanley Krippner was dismissed. Students have questioned the salaries paid to administrators in the consortium. Such questioning, however stressful, should be welcomed. It's a sign that democracy is at work here and that people care about the humanistic values embedded in our history. Fortunately, a number of Saybrook faculty have formed a chapter of the American Association of University Professors. It is dedicated to assuring due process, shared governance, and academic freedom. Students and alumni may join as well. If we are to use our talents to save the planet, we will need all of our institutions to hear the voices of those who seek transparency and caring. I wish I had some words of wisdom on the key to survival for our beautiful species and for our remarkable planet. What I can share is indeed quite modest. I go through a ritual alone every morning, visualizing the needless death of one of those children I mentioned before. And then I consider one thing that I might do today to reverse the tide of destruction. As I pass on the baton to you, the next generation, I would like to know that those I have touched are questioning the failing systems and mobilizing the forces of love to change it. Thank you. So I'm open for discussion, and I didn't take time to share the things that I'm doing currently, but whatever thoughts, response, whatever you want to say.
I would like you to share some of the things you're doing currently, and you've done a great deal of writing as well, including peace movements worldwide. Can you say something about scholarship and how it can help?
Well, there are 2 projects that I'm currently, or 3 projects that I'm currently working on. One has to do with the profession of psychology and mental health practice. As mental health practitioners, we're sort of on the forefront of the casualties of a global crisis. People come to see us with questions like, I don't know whether I should have children considering the possibilities of what's going to happen to the environment. It's not within the psychologist's training to say, well, you're not the only person who's experiencing this. There are many others. I could help put you in contact with some of these other people, and you can be doing something to prevent that environmental destruction, and then review the question again. Come to a mental health practitioner and say, my work situation is horrible. My plant is closing, the place is moving out, I'm losing my job. And the psychologist or the mental health professional says, well, maybe I could help you to go to a meditation session so you'll be able to handle the stress. Or maybe I'll be able to help you write a resume. But they don't say that 350 other people just got transferred to the same place. You have a possibility of getting together with them and finding out whether there is some severance that is owed to you, or whether in fact your group could, without the management, continue to run the place more efficiently with the experienced people therein. But we're not trained to do that. We're not trained in the military when the soldier is traumatized and comes back to the counselor and says, you know, I can't do this. I was told that this was a really good cause, but I'm finding that what I'm doing is I'm killing people. I'm killing young kids. I can't do this. And the professional military psychologist will say, well, we were going to help you become more resistant to this trauma so that you can go back and fulfill your obligations. Instead, they don't have in their training or in their capacities the possibility to say that there are a lot of people like you, many of them in service, many of them veterans from service, who have similar concerns. And that we know that one of the most helpful things that can be done for people who are traumatized is for them to be able to mobilize to prevent that trauma in other people from happening. So there are many examples of this in the prison system. So what we're working on is a project on re-envisioning the field of mental health practice. There are many practitioners who also feel like that they may be very concerned, but they work in a gig economy. If they're making a good living, it's because they're serving affluent people and avoiding the paperwork. If they work in an agency, they spend endless amounts of paperwork for piddling amount of money. It's not right. So we're trying to see how we can get that discussion going among psychologists. That's one project. Another project that I'm working on is the Guatemalan situation. And it's become, I've been trying to learn more about it. It's kind of heartbreaking to hear the stories of people trying to cross the desert with their families, to understand what it is that they are fleeing from, and to look at what their options are and how they are being mistreated from conditions that we have set up and we have benefited from. So I'm working on that project. And the last one I've been working on is this issue of influencing the presidential primaries. That primaries are a time when they may or may not result in good outcomes, but they're an important time for the raising of critical issues that get buried again and don't get looked at for a while. And so I worked with a group that created four resolutions to be adopted by different political groups. We're not averse to sending them to Republicans or to Trump supporters, but right now we've been focusing on the Democratic Party in California, and we've gotten these four resolutions adopted, and they deal with the control of nuclear weapons, an audit for the Pentagon, nonviolent resolutions for the situation in Venezuela, and an end to the presidential authorization to declare war without Congress. So so those are the things that I'm working on now. So let me, go ahead.
What would you like your legacy to be?
It's not something that I think about. I was kind of embarrassed with this idea that they're going to set up a fellowship in my name. I'm just happy to see if they set up the fellowship. It didn't have to be in my name. As long as some student gets to be able to work on this, that's what counts. I've always had this this sense that what I'm interested in is what is the contribution of ordinary people to living under extreme conditions. And I don't have a tremendous amount of faith in hierarchical organizations. Obviously, what I said about Saybrook was not really the kind of thing that you would say to a president who has just created an award in your area. But I think that it's the participation of ordinary people in the process that makes the difference. And it's the silence of ordinary people that permits the injustice to continue. Good.
After being an advocate for so many years and having to go through so many obstacles,
You're gonna have to yell.
okay,
Come
so
down.
okay, after being an advocate for so many years and experiencing some of the ups and downs of the things that you've given your time and talent to, how do you stay motivated to continue this work in such an effective and awesome way?
Well, it's a very good question. I'll tell you a story about a journalist in Jerusalem who looked out of his hotel window at the Wailing Wall. You would watch people come there and praying, and he watched day after day. There was this old man who came to the wall, and every morning he would be there, every noontime he would be there, and every evening, day after day. And the journalist was curious. He approached him and says, "Why are you coming to the wall?" He says, "I come to pray." "Well, what do you pray for?" He says, "In the morning I pray that there should be peace in the streets of Jerusalem." "What about noontime?" "Noontime, I think that there should be peace and brotherhood between the Israelis and all the Palestinians and all of our Arab neighbors." "And what do you pray for in the evening?" "In the evening, I pray that there should be peace and justice for everybody in the whole world." And the journalist says, "How long have you been doing this?" He says, "Oh, 40 years." He says, "Don't you get discouraged?" He says, "Yeah, it feels like I've been talking to a wall." So in answer to your question of how I keep myself motivated, one thing is I do not ask to see the consequences of the actions that I take. If I show up in a march and it doesn't get noticed in the newspaper, that's okay. If I send a letter to a person in Congress and I don't get a response, that's okay. I go through that ritual in the morning of what have I done. I know that I can't do this alone. I know that there are many, many wonderful people who are doing it. And I come with a belief that for those who say that the odds are really so dire that the environment is going to collapse no matter what we do, that we will be engaged in endless war, and then the possibility of extermination. One of the things that I recall is that predictions by re-educated people are not always correct. We're particularly not good at predicting social movements. We're very good at analyzing them afterwards, but we're never very good at predicting them. We don't know what the power is of a group of people getting together, a small group of people, and saying, what can I do? What can I participate in? What organizations can I be part of? We just don't know when that's going to mobilize. We don't know that it will mobilize quickly enough to prevent the most disastrous conditions. But we do know that if we don't do that, we have no chance.
How would you see educating kids from preschool, kindergarten on up to have a different approach to how we live?
You know, it's a very hard kind of a project. I was once a family therapist, and I saw a bunch of troubled kids and troubled families. And I was geared in the idea that what an advancement it was to have family therapy, that we didn't just treat the kid, send them back to a dysfunctional family, and hope that things would be okay, because sometimes the kid was just bearing the symptom of a family problem. And I worked with one family, a black family with serious problems, and I took out whatever I could from the books of what could be done. And the family therapy sessions, I would go out with one of the kids and throw a football. I'd have the family take photographs of themselves and statue type things and talk about how they placed each other. I gave them a safe place, and within a year I was just really terrifically impressed by the fact that they were doing well. And I asked them about this, and they had followed up on an initiative with the school. And a teacher who had been having trouble in disciplining one of these kids took a different approach to seeing what they could do with it. So I really felt really proud of myself. And then the guy lost his job when World Airways closed. And within a month, the whole thing started to unravel. So I had the same kind of sensation that, well, what a brilliant thing it was to see people in families rather than see the kids alone. But how inadequate it was to return a family to a dysfunctional community. So, you know, I kind of admire all of the innovative and educational programs that are teaching people how not to hit each other and how to resolve things in better ways. But it's all in a setting, it's all within a fabric, and any way you pick to work on it is wonderful, and it's inadequate unless you address its relationship to all of the other parts.
Mark could go on here, but maybe one more question and we'll call it a night. Pam?
Mark, I wanted to know how you see the future of the transformative social change program at SABRE. Do you feel that it is time to introduce a transhumanistic perspective, especially with the new technology that has been presented with, new ways to have speaking without words, telepathy with the new computer chip that will be out by the end of this year. Elon Musk has said, we're at the verge of going beyond humanism. Do you have an opinion about transhumanistic psychology in the transformative social change program?
I have really a very uninformed opinion about this. I've always been somewhat suspicious of technological changes. I thought that the wheel was a good thing, but they probably should have stopped after that. And I see the technology that's going now into information systems, and the amazing thing about it is as we provide data, just when we use our our IT devices, we are providing information for algorithms that are being used to determine what it is that we can be exposed to think about. Now just think about that. What does that mean to a self? What does that mean to your identity? And so it's the question you asked, I think, is really vital to understanding what it is to be able to maintain a kind of humanity that's face to face and valuing people, and keep it from being swept up by the technologies that are playing with our mind. So thank you for that.
So I just want to say, first of all, thank you to Nathan Long for, it takes a special kind of courage and grace to honor those who one knows to be the rebel within one's own institution. And and we all know Mark from his history. These things would be no surprise. And just to say how grateful we are for Mark and his presence, and how much we love you, and how glad we are that you are continuing to be teaching in our program. And thank you for being such a tremendous inspiration.
Thank you, John. One thing I'm doing is downsizing. That's one of the things you do when you get older, and I brought a copy of a paper that I wrote with a former Xavier student, not because it has anything special to do with what I'm talking about, but because I have a lot of copies of it. Well, if anybody wants a copy, I gave a bunch of them to Joel.
Okay. What's it called?
Mic drop.
It's called the mic drop.
As only the best do. Here, I got that for you. Thank you so much, Mark.
Thank you.
That was amazing.
Marvelous.
Amazing.
Very good.
Absolutely.
Uh-huh.
Oh,
Perfect.
Yeah. Okay.
yes.
Beautiful.
Yes.
I really like what you said. Yep. Marvelous. I was